Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers. We're kind of on the edge of the Survival Series 2, but today we are focused on actually rebuilding the mining drone that we had built previously. This is going to be kind of the cut and paste rebuild. So here's the problem. Our dev has made an Autominer script that looks to be just absolutely fantastic. The problem is there are some requirements on that script that this particular miner doesn't meet. So even though this miner is entirely vanilla, the coupling for it is on the back. And according to the script, it needs to have either a coupler on the sides, the bottom, or the top. So I'm going to have to modify this. Now the other thing I want to do here, even though this is vanilla, I want to add on, for the use of this particular script anyway, I want to add on the cargo teleporter. And to do that, I need to come up with a way to do that equitably. So here's one of the issues. This particular miner mostly depends upon the idea that a medium cargo container actually is the same size in cargo content as a drill. So the drills, in other words, hold the same amount of cargo as can a as can a medium container. So adding a medium container onto a drill ship may not really get you anything. So you'd almost have to be into the realm of a large container. And the interesting thing about the large container here is that how do we do the large container versus adding all these other things that we need to add on. For example, the connector it's a large connector, so I actually need to put it onto a large port. Now, there's very few things on the small ship grids that can do the large ports. Hydrogen tanks, for one. This is hydrogen powered, so to make everything work within the hydrogen power, we of course have our gas generator here. This is a drone, so it's unmanned. But if we were to put, a cockpit somewhere, then we would end up having to draw the oxygen portion of this, and ultimately need possibly an oxygen tank of some kind. So we have our hydrogen tank here, and the next thing we need to figure out how to put on the connector. So we're really limited to oxygen tank, or rather hydrogen tank, excuse me, a medium container, or a large container. Those are really kind of the limits that we have. Those are the choices that we have. So what I thought that I would potentially do here is kind of hack and slash this one apart and add in a medium container. And what I want to do is really see if I can do what I wanted to do and still have everything work as intended. The cargo teleporter works as a sorter. So it functions and behaves very much like a sorter, except whatever it pulls into it, it actually transmits out. Now, this does have an antenna. You can see the antenna is down here. So the KTC drone miner here is being broadcast with the antenna. There is a little bit hard to see because it's buried under the thrusters up here. But there is a remote control right here. The reactors for this guy are built in through the side here, and then we have the two batteries, one top and one bottom, that are charging. So the reactors will pull in the uranium, or rather we can put uranium into it. And I think there are 6. It does look like there's 6. So the antenna is on the bottom, the remote control unit here on the top, which is of course a kind of a mandatory thing when you come into a drone if you want to be able to control it, and then the ore detector here. So between the antenna, try and see what we have down there. Nothing but junctions, it looks like. So the question is how to redo this in such a way that we can do what we need to do. And going there, what do we actually need to do? Well, I need to put a connector on the top, bottom, and the sides. And I need to have a way to add in the cargo teleporter, because what I want to do is have this thing pretty much mining constantly. I've been having some problems with the script, but I'm not sure those problems aren't related to this world and just, you know, the difficulties that I'm having here. So that's why I wanted to redo this miner. We'll start out with it being completely vanilla, that way I know there's not anything conflicting with it, and then go from there. So what I'm going to do here is actually copy this, and then I'm going to go up here just a little bit and then paste it back in. And the reason why I'm doing that is that I really want both halves of this. So what I'm going to do is break it apart right here. So we're going to take the oxygen tank off, sorry, the hydrogen tank off, just aft of the hydrogen generator. Oh, the gas generator, sorry, and the 2 batteries. So the downside of that is there's a lot of things here that are already named and installed into the remote control. So when I do that, I'm going to screw up all that remote control. So what I'm going to do is break this apart really systematically. In other words, I'm going to break one half and then break the other half, and then I'll have literally the 2 halves left that I can put back together. That way I don't have to completely redo my remote control. And RDEV script actually takes over the remote control anyway, so I don't think there will be a whole lot of things that I will have to worry about there. So let's see what happens. We're going to break this bottom one apart to the front half, so it should be fairly easy. There we go. So as we come up here, that'll break that off like that. We'll go ahead and just remove all of this stuff as it is. So there we have the front half as anticipated, and then down here we'll do the same thing with the back half. So I'll over the top here and make that happen like that. Okay, so we have our ice, which thankfully, okay, I can pick that up. 0. Okay, so we have basically the back half, and then we'll delete the front half here. In fact, I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to put this over here and actually dismantle it, just because it's pieces, and might as well. I don't know what that is in there that is not. No, it's moving. So let me go ahead and select my color and change that, and hopefully that will everything before it goes anywhere. Yeah, looks like it is. Alright, so let's focus back on what we're doing here. So given these two halves, what we need to accomplish here is to add in a container, and the container is mostly for the sake of giving us an attachment point for a container, so we can put on a connector on the side, top, or bottom. So the only way that I think we can really effectively do this, finding a so let's go into cargo blocks. We're going to grab a large cargo container. So the other option here would be the conveyor junction, and to not use let's investigate. We'll drag that in, and we may be able to actually use that. So cargo teleporter is already here on the toolbar. I do need a sensor. I've already got the remote control, and I need a programming block, which this does not have. So the sensor and the programming block are the two blocks that I need to add to this before I can make the script itself work. So looking at the let's go ahead and get into Tiger Orange here so we don't screw everything up too bad. The advantage to and I'm one block off, so let's go ahead and get ourselves a little more centered. So the advantage to using the conveyor junction is we basically add in our capability. There we go. So we basically add in our capability to in and out in a big port, and then we would have a port on the top or bottom. And in this case, we would be able to pull in or out via a coupler connector on the bottom. So absolutely an option here. The other option, which is going to be a little less ideal, would be the large container. And here's why the large container is a little bit less of an ideal. One of the things you notice about the large container, I'm trying to spin it around sideways, is you have 3 large and 3 small connectors here. So the advantage to the large container, of course, is that you have a container. The disadvantage to the container is it is a 5x5 block container. Small blocks, of course, but 5x5 blocks, which now puts my connector, which is actually 2 blocks tall, outside the dimensions of this vessel. So it would actually be 1 high, so not ideal. So I think in this case, just adding in the conveyor, the junction like this. So this junction, the other advantage, it's kind of hard to see, but as you see, I'm rotating in a singular direction, so this is going around clockwise. And we actually have 4 big ports on this. So with this particular orientation, it's 1 up, 1 down, 1 out the back, and 1 out the front. We also have these 3 down, in fact, each side. So if I rotate this around, you can see it's got 3 on that side, and then I rotate again, and you can see I've got 3 on that side. So even though we're not going to use these small ports for anything, it actually does give us the flexibility to do quite a bit as far as all the different ports go. So this, in this case, because we're just adding in a connector and the teleporter, or the cargo teleport, I think this will work. And I'm not changing the structure dramatically. I'm adding 3 more blocks, but within that 3 blocks I can do everything I need to do. So I've got 2 pieces I need to add on here, and then I can leave the rest of the structure entirely the same. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use this. So we'll go ahead and paste this in, and I'm not going to use the sides for anything. I'm going to go ahead and put the teleporter on the top, and I need to orient it so it's pulling out, which is what this is here. So with the arrow facing up is pulling everything out, and then on the bottom here I'm going to add this in, and this should still be symmetrical here. It's 2 blocks, so let's picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So if we put this here, you can see my connector now comes off the bottom. It is connected onto a big port, which it needs to be. Well, in this case it doesn't really need to be. It's convenient because then I can hook up to the large connectors on any station. So this connector is in fact the same size as any of the other connectors, so it can connect into the large connectors on the station. Ore is one of those unique things in that all the different types of ore can be pulled through the small conveyors. There's a lot of components, about half of the components do not fit in the small conveyors. So it's one of the concerns that you have to investigate when you're building, to make sure you're not going to conflict with those size differentials. So in this case, I wouldn't run into that anyway because I'm using the large conveyors for everything. Except up in the front, the drills are in fact entirely small conveyors. And even though I've got that conveyored via the oxygen, let's go ahead and look. I'm babbling about it. Let's go ahead and have a see. So the drills only have small ports, and even though you can only see the ones on the side, so the ones on the side are in fact not connected to anything. Well, I take that back. They are connected in the center, so they are under here. There's these 3 thrusters here, but they are actually there's 3 junctions underneath there, and so this back junction actually is connected across to the other drill. Likewise, these conveyor junctions back here are connected to the drills in the back. So there's actually a tiny bit of redundancy here that's built in to the drills. So the drills have 3 ports on them, 1 on each side, small ports, and 1 in the back. So again, the point here is that all the ore that you could mine is actually going to fit just fine in a small conveyor. So the entire front of this particular vessel is small conveyors. So it does everything it needs to do with the small conveyors. In this case right now you see it's still running. It's actually because this oxygen generator here is still generating enough hydrogen to keep the hydrogen thrusters at idle. So that was, the whole issue there. My question here is, did I change my colors? Yeah, apparently I did. So what I'm going to do here is kind of look and see. So my camera is a different color. Connector here in the back is a different color. And then the 4 extreme. So all the cameras, everything are different color. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and then tigerize everything here. Then we're going to go back to the tiger stripey black and go ahead and make our corrections here. So we have, that one was black, that was black, and that was black. We have another camera back here, which is our aft pointing camera. So here's going to be, this is a control, and then click, and we'll undo that. The reason I did that control click is because this junction underneath is not accessible without my tearing something apart. So what I wanted to do here was basically color like I needed to color, but the only way I can do that is to do the shift or the control thing. So whoops, change back to my tiger stripey black. Yeah, so I built this apparently prior to changing colors. Alright, so let's go here. Remember the camera and the two thrusters here, and then the challenge is we have to do the control click, which of course is going to change several things. Because the goal here is that I don't want to tear more things apart just to get in and recolorize this thing. So I have batteries. This one may actually be easier just to recolor by way of recoloring. And of course the problem is I can't get into things like I got the cross. I guess it doesn't really matter too much. So all the thrusters top and bottom, the thrusters on the side are black, and a couple things on the top and bottom. So I think I'm going to go ahead and take the plunge, recolorize everything, and then selectively change to black. And I guess we don't necessarily have to completely mimic what was happening here before. So I know the batteries and the cameras were black, so let's start there. There were quite a few of these that were black. I think, in fact, the two ends, if they weren't, they are now. So we'll just make all of these and color those two. I know most everything. Oops. Most everything here was black. I remember these guys being black as well. Jetpack that has a little bit too much oomph now. Alright, and then top and bottom. So we know all three of the thrusters and this junction, and we'll do the same thing on the bottom. And I think that will be about all the tiger stripey that we really need on here, excuse me. Alright, so we have our two halves. Now it should be just a matter of pasting them together, and I hope I will be able to do that effectively. We're going to try. So we're going to do a quick Shift F5, which is a quick save. Then we'll do a X and a Control V, and we will see what we can do here. So if you can see here, I've now got the, we'll go off a little bit so you can see. So this is offset, still green, but it's offset. So what I want is for this conveyor junction here in the middle to actually made up correctly with that oxygen or the gas generator there. So I've got a green line here. Everything looks lined up. So I am commit. Bing. Okay. Now, if everything worked out as I hope it did, and we'll verify that, is to go in here and see if all of these things actually are the same. So all of our batteries lined up the same. We have the cameras are all the same still, which is good. We have two connectors. So we have this connector on the back and we have the connector on the bottom. And we don't actually know which ones those are because, hey, we didn't actually name everything. So let's go ahead and name things so it makes sense. So here's the aft connector here, and we're going to actually name this aft connector, which means the other connector is the ventral connector. And of course, the only things that we really need to do is do the control over to me. So we have our batteries upper and lower, which are still there. If our controller here, which is this here, if everything worked out, then we actually have, it looks like it's not. So in this case, these three things, whatever they happen to have been, fell off the world, which were likely cameras. But let me go ahead and what I'm, oh darn, okay, because I'm connected here. What I'm wanting to do here is go into F10, the drone miner here. Okay, we're going to actually paste this into the world. And what I'm going to do is look at this and see, and this again, this doesn't matter. This is pure OCD thing. So remote control here, control, and I can actually see what these particular things are. So in this case, 4, 5, and 6 were the three slots that had issues. So if I go into this, and I already know what this is, so this is the aft camera, which fell off, which I was hoping it wouldn't, but it did. And then the connector, which is the aft connector. So how do I know that? Because there's only one connector. We added another connector, and in fact, what I want is for that connector, that bottom connector, to actually be that connector. So it's the aft camera, the switch lock for the connector, and then the toggle on and off. All right, so knowing that, now I will, in fact, let's go ahead and we'll paste that over here and dismantle it just for the sake of parts, just because nothing like having some extra parts, right? So we'll go over here, we'll change colors. Paint, and then okay, and then back over here. So ultimately, what I want to do is directly connect onto this guy, and we're going here to RC Drone Miner, and I guess if we really wanted to differentiate between the two, we'd go to Victor 2 here. You can actually run the broadcast radius much larger. I'm gonna go ahead and leave this. I'm gonna put it at 10,000 rather than 50. I don't know that I want to be running 200 kilowatts out of this thing, mostly because I don't remember how much the reactors. I think let's look at the reactors here just to see. So these guys can do 500 kilowatts each, and they're running on the batteries, which it may also be a problem. Yes, it is. So what we want here, whoa, these go to max. Not what I really wanted, but I didn't. That's why I didn't put. So the batteries are taking all of the input that they can right now. So you see 1.5, 1.5. So they're pulling in everything, but they're only going to be doing that to the point of being completely recharged, and then they will go back to somewhat idle. But these guys are going to be max power out until that happens. So it does appear as though we have enough power to battery ratio here to maintain. At least I hope that's the case. I don't. I never like to see reactors go to absolute max. The good news is, because this particular unit is hydrogen powered, then power becomes a very small issue, even though the hydrogen thrusters do indeed take some power. So these went to 100%. They do take power. See, there we go. So we can see once our batteries reach max, so they have fully charged up to 100%, and now we're just maintaining. We actually have a pretty large margin here for our reactors, which is a really good thing. You always want to have a very large margin on your reactors, because you never know. You add something new, and boom! All of a sudden, you have absolutely no reserve at all. All right, hydrogen tank. I guess we don't actually have anything there. H2O2 generator. I like to call these gas generators. So what I'm going to do, just to get things kind of off the screen, is we're going to create another group called systems gas. What do I want to call that? Just systems gaseous. So we'll save that. In this case, hydrogen tank, we're going to do the inventory off, but the gas generator does have an inventory. We'll also take that off the toolbar, so our gaseous then just off in the terminal. So what I did was they're both off on the terminal. The gas generator itself obviously has an inventory that we need to maintain, so that one is still on the inventory list. So show block and inventory screen is on, whereas with the tank itself is off, and then show block and terminal, both of them are off. That's because I don't really need to see them in the terminal here. I've got a group there that's set up specifically for that. Cargo teleporter. Interesting thing about the cargo teleporter here is the cargo teleporter, it has to have, this is a combination, I'm going to use the term very loosely, combination block. So this system is designed around the concept that I have a container that is named very specifically, and the cargo teleporter itself. And then on the other side, which happens to be the station side, I have the same thing. So I have a cargo teleporter and then a cargo container that is dedicated to this cargo teleport system. I have conventions built in. And what I mean by that is that I've been using these cargo teleporters for a while now. So I actually have 5 different contingency plans that are basically how I want to do the teleportation of everything around the universe. So I have a system, for example, that would transport from a ground station to a space base station. So I have a set that will go both ways there. Mining is what I primarily use these for. So I try to build a teleporter set, cargo teleport set for mining purposes. And I build that into most every build that I do. So that's one of the things that we do here. So what I mean by the standard that I have set is that this teleporter, in this case, this is on the miner, so this is the transmit side or the to side. So we are teleporting to a container called elsewhere receiver. So that's my teleporter itself. Now, this is also going to be set to a drain all. So we're going to pull everything out of this that we can. It is a blacklist none, which means teleport everything, right? It's basically, it's the same filtering mechanics as is a sorter. So this is kind of based on the sorter. So this is going to behave exactly like a sorter, except everything that comes into this, rather than pushing it through, and it would push it through if I had something connected on the other side, is going to teleport to the other end. In this case, it's going to teleport everything into the container on the far side called elsewhere receiver. So it's going to look for an elsewhere receiver on the other side of its counterpart teleporter. The other thing that we need here, which is kind of bizarre, but it's something that we absolutely need to have, is a cargo container that is named something specifically. And we're not really going to be using it, but it needs to be there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to change, go back into our cargo. We need a small cargo container in this case, which is going to take the place of this guy here, and I can get rid of that guy now. So this is a small container, and we got to, of course, do it the right color, which I think we're going to be tiger stripey here. I'm going to turn this sideways just because it looks a little nicer there, and I'm going to paste this guy right in there. Now it is going to serve pretty much no function at all, other than this guy needs to be named, so that's a K. It's called right now small cargo container, right? But this is actually a container that is the counterpart to the one on the station, and this is called cargo transmit. So these always work in combinations with a teleporter and a container. In this case, I am transmitting to this container, elsewhere receiver, which is on the station, but I'm also transmitting from this. So the receiver on the other side, the cargo teleporter, is actually going to say from cargo transmit, F cargo transmit. So this is to create these things, and I see I'm going to have to reselect ownership here because I just pasted that in. Okay, so cargo transmit. Even though that's not really going to get used, this guy is acting like a sorter, so he's going to pull everything through like normal. So system, or systems rather, and cargo teleport. So we'll have those two systems there. So save. We're going to turn those off on the toolbar and off on the terminal. So those are gonna hide in that. Okay, we'll leave these guys out here because they're there. The other thing that we need to do is go ahead and correct the issues on here. Oh. So G in this case, we have our aft camera, which is this one here now, view, and then these were our connectors. And in this case, we're actually going to do the ventral connector, so switch lock, and in this case, on and off. Now, why do I do an on and off? So when you undock from a connector, you have about a 5-second period where they turn to that cayenne color, which is really, I want to call it the magnetic grapple that turns off. So you can pull away and not have any problems. The problem is if you just disconnect and then you like go get a cup of coffee, then by the time you get back, those will have turned yellow again and the magnetic grapple turns back on. And 9 times out of 10, the vessels do not have the thrust to be able to pull away from that magnetic thing. So the only way to do that is to turn the damn thing off. So I tend to build, it's nice that the magnetic grapple is there and all because it really does help you with docking. But on the other side of that is that if you are outside of that little window where it turns those things off automatically for you, then you have absolutely no hope of pulling away from your station, because the magnetics of that system far exceed the thrust capability of your ship, which actually is kind of amazing because some of these ships have a lot of thrust capability. So it's kind of stupid in certain ways. So it's the double-edged sword of it does help you a little bit when you're docking, but it also hinders you when you're trying to undock. I build in usually 2 buttons on my toolbar. One of them is the actual lock unlock, so the toggle lock, and the other is on off. So what I tend to do, and this is one of the other unique things about the connectors, is if you turn a connector off when you're coupled, it doesn't matter, it still stays locked. So the only way to unlock a coupler is actually to unlock it. So I do the combination here of switch lock off, switch lock off. That way I guarantee it is off. Then when I pull away from whatever I dock to, I turn that back on. I turn my connector back on, and then I'm ready to go when I come back to dock. So it's kind of one of those things that you just kind of have to deal with. So the goal here was to recreate this particular vanilla vessel in such a way that that we could try and attempt to use our devs script. So I wanted to recreate exactly as the original vanilla vessel was, which is to say repopulate these items that had grayed out as a function of me tearing the ship apart, basically. All right, so we're going to escape to get out of the toolbar create menu. Then we're going to T to get out of that particular menu. And then remember, we had these 2 things that we need to add in here. So the downside is I don't really have any room up front for these sensors. So I put a camera up here. Now, the problem with cameras and sensors is you can't actually put anything on the front. So that's not necessarily a good thing. However, I can put a sensor facing backwards and it should still be able to do everything it needs to do. So what I'm going to do is put the sensor over here on the back side of this thing. And the only thing I want to do is kind of make sure this is facing the right way up. So the control pad up is facing this up. So this is as close to the front as I can really get this guy without being on this front row. So without taking something. Now granted, I could take out a spotlight and put that in. It would hurt absolutely nothing because after all, once this goes fully automatic, then you don't need the spotlights, you don't need the cameras or anything else. But because I wanted to build this kind of as a drone which could be used as a drone, so you could personally control this if you needed to, then that kind of puts a damper on things in how we design things. So making it multi-purpose means we do kind of have to make things in a particular way. So 6, and because we're attaching it where we are, then I think that will be fine right there. So 2 of the things we need to do, we'll go into K, which will bring up our entire control panel menu here. I'm going to click on just anything at random. Control A, which will bring up everything. We're going to go ahead and unhide everything and do the same thing again. So Control A, transfer to me, and yes. Okay, that will just absolutely guarantee that everything within this vessel is to me, and then this is everything that's left. So we put the programmable block on here, which is what we wanted to, and we put a sensor on here as well. So we're going to go ahead and name this just because. So drone miner, and we'll call this a V2. So version 2, Victor 2. And I like to rename all these as program block. And this is going to be Autominer. Okay, so ore detector. Yeah, so I think we're all good here. So we're on the program block now. So we're going to go ahead and do edit, browse workshop in this case. We have, oh, never mind, I don't have that. What we have to do, number changes, no. In this case, what I forgot is that there is actually a programmable, there's a, our dev has actually put this into a, and let me go ahead. So this is, he's actually put it into a pastable, it's a blueprint. And then you can use that blueprint to take it out and do. You can actually, chop this apart and paste in the devices, or you can just come up here and copy, which is what I'm going to do. So K, so this is what it looks like when it's running. We're going to go into edit. We're going to just click, do a Control A and a Control C to copy the code. Then we're going to escape and escape to get completely out of that. We're going to figure out where did I put the miner, which is out here. I need to be on this side of it. In fact, if I were being really intelligent, which I suppose I ought to do, K, we'll go into info here, and this is drone miner V2. Okay, and we'll back off just a hair, and we will do a Control B, which should actually copy that, which we see it up here, drone miner V2. And then we will go to our programmable block here, do a K, go in, edit, critical. And in this case, select on anything, Control A, then a Control V, which will copy in the code, check code, compilation successful, remember and exit. So large amount of thrusters detected, which is true. This has a 15 thruster limit, which the idea is to, as it says right here, designed to prevent performance issues because it takes control of all of these things. So what I have to do is go back in here and change thrust count override is set to true, and I just need to set this to false. And recompile, and it will no longer actually check to see what the thrust override is doing. Okay, remember an exit. Cannot find docking route. Please dock to a static connector to use as a drop-off point. Okay, so what the two things now that we need are a docking point, which is going to be really easy here, and I'll show you that in a minute, and a GPS coordinate for the asteroid that you intend to mine. So in this case, let me go ahead and do a quick save again. We're going to zoom over here to, we have this mining asteroid that's over here. This is a paste-in asteroid here. And what I want to do is get right up against the asteroid face and then turn around and look at this. Now, what am I doing here? This is a demonstration of the RDev recommends that you set your GPS coordinate for the asteroid at 30 meters or more. So in my case here, I'm a little offset, so I'm not, you know, a direct straight line here on the axes, but 37.5 meters. So I'm more than 30 meters. The idea is that it's using the remote control and autopilot function to get you here. And the problem with the built-in, the vanilla autopilot, for those of you who have played with it, you know it is a little bit wonky. It does strange things every once in a while. So when you're doing that course navigation, it comes screaming in at like top speed. If you're close to the asteroid, you could actually bounce off the asteroid by way of, well, this thing behaves a little bit wonky and it gets you close, and then, oh, well, yeah, we're getting close to this. Maybe we should turn the thrusters off now. So being more than 30 meters, that gives you a little bit of a buffer zone so it doesn't get completely crazy on you. You definitely don't want to bounce your miner off the asteroid that you were intending to mine. That would not be very productive at all. So 37.5 here, greater than 30, so I think I'm good. So the first thing we need to do is dock this guy, and here's where the challenge actually comes in. So we're going to dock him up here. So one of the things I need to do is actually connect onto this drone miner. So miner 2, and I'm cheating a little bit. I'm not, you know, normally you would go over to the miner and actually attach on. In this case, I'm going to do this way. So I want to come up and then, in fact, burn backwards here. Now, sometimes, no, Alt. So you can go up and down, but you can't go side to side. So, again, the bug list that people have provided to Steam, or just to Keen, so what I have to do is T to get out of this. I want to be able to see what I'm doing here. So back into control, drone miner, remote control, and control. So what I want to do is go up, over, more, up, over. Unfortunately, not being able to really see. So you get it in the general direction, you do a T so you can get back out and then come back over and get our relative bearing once again.
No energy.
So in this case, I'm going to go back into my inventory because it gives me a convenient way to get into here. And oh, power. Okay. So my broadcast has gone off. Whoa. Okay, this is definitely a what the fuck moment. I have no idea what's going on here. My dampers are on. I am actually way beyond. There are moments I truly hate this game. So this is all buttons released, and I'm just magically going in a particular direction at full thrust. If I counter that thrust, then I can actually do something here. So my dampers are on, so the only way that I will apparently be able to do anything here so I'm full port, I'm full, just holding the A key down, which is letting me come in here. So right now my thruster is completely stuck on A. Let's see if we can actually do a T. Yeah, apparently we can. So I'm turning off my jetpack because it is clearly malfunctioning. Alright, 100% power, we're doing an X to see what happens. Yeah, and I just take off and alright, so what I'm going to do is come back over here and then turn my jetpack off. Well, I haven't completely arrested everything, so A, come to a complete halt here. Turn my jetpack off, do a quick save, and unfortunately I will have to exit and come back in because the game is AFU, which is not a surprise, but inconvenient nonetheless. All these neat little bugs where things happen. So I am right about an hour, which is probably a good place to stop. So this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.